Honorable Kay McConney, Minister of Education, Technological and Vocational Training. Dr. the Honorable William Duguid, Minister of Planning and Development and Senior Minister in the Prime Minister's Office. Mrs. Gabrielle Springer, Director General, Infrastructure. Dr. Ramona Archer Bradshaw and other officers of the Dr. Ramona Archer Bradshaw, Chief Education Officer, and other officers of the Ministry of Education, Technological and Vocational Training. Mr. Daniel DeBess, Advisor, Infrastructure Development in the Prime Minister's Office. Mr. Steve Devenish, Director, Natural Heritage Department and Competition Chairperson. Mr. Kevin Brown, President, the Barbados Institute of Architects. Miss Renee Holford, President of the Barbados National Students Council, student of the Christ Church Foundation School. Miss Roseanne Tudor, Representative of the Barbados Council for the Disabled. Specially invited guests, members of the press, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Welcome to the Ministry of Education, Technological and Vocational Training. We're here at this press briefing to launch the Modern School Infrastructure Design Competition. I am Joy Adamson, Deputy Chief Education Officer responsible for schools and your moderator for this morning. Now we have at the head table 6 esteemed speakers to address us and bring remarks this morning. And I want to invite first to the lectern our own Minister of Education, the Honorable Kay McConney, who will provide a brief history of our education system, the need for transformation, sustainable school infrastructure, and learning. Please welcome Honorable Kay McConney.
Good morning. Thank you, Madam Chair of Proceedings. And this morning I come particularly excited because we are about to launch something that will change the face of schools in this country. And I want to say welcome to the press, to the individual members of our head table, to our audience and the public who is following on social media and who are in fact benefiting from the stream of the Media Resources Department. Good morning, everyone. I welcome you now to the launch of the Ministry of Education, Technological and Vocational Trainings, our design competition for modern school infrastructure. This is indeed the start of a new chapter in our provision of sustainable and resilient schools. For all of us, we can say that Barbados has had an outstanding record in education. And all of the individuals in this room and online have certainly benefited, and so has our country. We have achieved universal access in primary education, meaning children can access freely education from as early as 5 years old, all the way to 16. That is mandatory access in this country, and we have provided access all the way through secondary school, and we have provided access also at the tertiary level, where in fact very recently this current government in 2018 restored the payment of fees for students who are studying at the tertiary level. The provision of equitable access to high quality and relevant public education is one of the most important priorities of governments worldwide, and indeed that is certainly the case here in Barbados. And as such, our annual public expenditure on education has approximated about 16.5% of total government expenditure over the last 3 decades. Our current government, we have determined that we will continue to support universal access to education, and in fact, we are not just speaking that, we are on a trajectory right now to expanding that access to include students from as young as 3 years old, expanding that early childhood access from 5 to 3 over the next 3 years. However, despite the significant investment by our government, to the delivery of education and the achievement of several quantitative targets, the system of education is still plagued with some elements of quality and equity, efficiency, and effectiveness. We are seeing challenges in our school infrastructure, in effective leadership of schools, in teacher quality, in curriculum offerings, in sector planning and monitoring. It does not mean that we are not doing well in many areas. It just means that we are honest enough with ourselves to recognize that there is room for improvement in all of these areas. As a consequence, our education system, it continues to see significant disparities in the performance of our learners. Not every single child is having the quality experience that we expect or the quality outcomes that we know they're all aspiring to. And based on the issues that have been identified, the government of Barbados, through this Ministry of Education, has determined that our education system should be built on a firm foundation. Firm meaning fair, inclusive, relevant, and modern. And that system should ensure that we provide a bright future for every child. Now, based on multiple consultations, engagements, and frank discussions with key stakeholders, including members of staff here at our Ministry of Education, Technological and Vocational Training, educators from across the country, principals, teachers, students, parents, guardians, community leaders, non-governmental organizations, and private sector partners. The following elements have been proposed and included in our effort to transform the education system. You heard me speak earlier about providing universal access to education starting over the next 3 years from age 3. Customizing our secondary education program to align with student skills, their interests, and to reflect a 21st century world of emerging jobs and workforce needs. We've determined that centralizing information technology and digital technologies in both content and delivery of education is important. That we need to mainstream the provision of special educational needs and social and emotional learning, meaning that we will, to the extent possible and feasible, have an inclusive approach to ensuring that students with special needs are integrated as part of the mainstream education system to the extent that it is practical. We need to provide enhanced support services in education to improve academic learning and to help students develop coping skills. We need to develop means to assure quality in teaching standards, to increase the opportunities for teacher professional development. And we need to establish and advance the work to finally establish a teaching service commission to support greater teacher effectiveness. We recognize that if we are to transform, we as a ministry must transform from within. Over the last 3 days, we have been in strategic planning meetings with the heads of departments and all the education officers to ensure that as we steer a course towards transformation and towards the management of the education system over the next 5 years, that all are included and that their input is such that they too own the strategic plan going forward. And as a part of that, we expect that we will continue to work together to see how we need to restructure the ministry itself to be able to carry forward the work of this country. Strengthening school leadership is finally another part of what we will need to do if we are to move transformation. And I shared all of this because I wanted you to understand that this infrastructural work that we're doing with schools, trying to make schools look better, feel better, be safer, be more secure, and be, first of all, more conducive to learning of our students, and really make students want to say, you see that school? I really want to go there. And for parents to feel that sense of comfort that we can create and make every school a good school. This effort that we're making now to create more modern and safe physical facilities to support student learning and performance, and more modern overall infrastructure that includes not just the physical parts of the school, but their surroundings, their beautification, all that will make up the school experience. As we seek to modernize that, it is not just Barbados who recognizes that we need to do significant work. The United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, the World Bank, the Caribbean Development Bank, and other development partners have all recognized the need for this, and that we as Barbados need to be a part of the world that is seeking to move forward. Ladies and gentlemen, you will hear a lot more about what will be a part of our competition as we seek to ask the architects of Barbados to stand up and show us what you are capable of. We know that every architect has his or her own aesthetic, but we recognize that while there's need for us to stay with some of the old ways of doing things, we need to modernize schools. Schools have looked the same over the last 50 years in this country and longer. And there is a need now for us to be able to bring some creativity, some innovation, and say, what should this new school look like in the 21st century? It is exciting that this design competition will provide us with creative and innovative concepts, designs, and concepts for schools, for modern nursery, primary, secondary, and special needs schools infrastructure. The intention is that we will be designing sustainable school infrastructure for tomorrow, and that we will be integrating creativity and collaborating across different perspectives, ultimately enabling us to attain our objectives under education transformation. Architects, you play a very critical role in this endeavor. You are excellent at your craft. We expect you to submit building design concepts that feature better environmental performance, allowing for more naturally ventilated spaces and optimizing shade and wind flow. We want you to incorporate energy efficient solutions and to design infrastructure and spaces that are accessible and can effectively support the needs of our learners and our special educational needs of those persons with disabilities. We want you to think water conservation. We want you to think of how we can use the indoor and outdoor spaces, recognizing that we are at a time in the climate of this world where we need to make sure that we are using the outdoor and indoor spaces. You will hear a lot more later as to what the specifics of the briefs will be, and I look forward to the attractive and exciting new designs that we will receive. I, in concluding, would like to say that I am delighted. I am absolutely delighted to be leading this Ministry of Education, Technological and Vocational Training at this time as we embark on what I think is one of the most consequential transformation of infrastructure in our educational system. I am equally delighted to be associated with the launch of this competition where we are inviting our local architects to be a part of education transformation. Now, as we move on from this launch, we are moving towards a more comprehensive plan for school infrastructure maintenance. As we know, we have been plagued over several years by an aging asset, which we call school infrastructure at all levels. It is time that we not only respond in an ad hoc way to those concerns that have been raised, but that we put a comprehensive plan in place. And again, I want to share that currently in Bonfire, which is the government's e-procurement platform, there is a call for expressions of interest to conduct conditions audits or conditions assessments of our schools. Some conditions assessments, some audits were done, and we now need to update in light of the new briefs and the new areas of focus where we would like to see more modern infrastructure emerge. I invite all interested persons and who are qualified to come forward, put your hands up through the national procurement process and help us not only to manage our plant, but help us to move towards progress in the way we see infrastructure in this country. I know that this is not a vote of thanks, but I could not close these remarks without expressing my gratitude. First to Senior Minister, Honorable William Duguid, who has responsibility for infrastructure and for planning and development. I want to thank also the Director General for Infrastructure, Gabrielle Springer, and the officers of the ministry. I want to thank the Barbados Association of Architects. I want to thank our advisor, who is also a consultant to our government on infrastructure and development, Mr. Daniel Best. I want to thank Mr. Devonish, who has spent countless hours seeking to make sure we get this competition right. Officers of the Ministry of Education, Technological and Vocational Training, Ms. Ward, Mr. Francisco Miller, those from the Education Management Technical Unit, our Media Resource Department, and the management here, including our Permanent Secretary and others at the Ministry. I chose to do this at this time because, as I said to Minister Duguid this morning, sometimes we take people for granted. We say this is your job, and therefore we expect that people will deliver in significant ways. But when you have people like Paul Murphy, who is now heading our change management department, who came in and hit the ground running and has gone above and beyond his job, like all of the others I have named, the least we can do is say thank you. And so I simply am left to say to you, I look forward to a robust competition, and that the judging will be difficult as we start to see what our architects of Barbados can deliver for us. Thank you all.
Thank you, Minister, sincerely. Every child deserves quality education, and that is why we are working with this transformation initiative, A Bright Future for Every Child. It gives me great pleasure now to introduce our Chief Education Officer, Dr. Ramona Archer Bradshaw, who will share some remarks on pedagogical perspectives on reimagining education in Barbados towards school buildings that promote learning, ensure safety, and protect the environment. Please welcome the Chief Education Officer, Dr. Ramona Archer Bradshaw.
Dr. the Honorable William Duguid, Senior Minister, Infrastructural Projects and Town Planning Matters. The Honorable Kay McConney, Minister of Education, Technological and Vocational Training. Ms. Gabrielle Springer, Director General Infrastructure. Ms. Wendy Odle, Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Education, Technological and Vocational Training. Mr. Daniel Best, Advisor on Infrastructure, Prime Minister's Office. Mr. Steve Devenish, Director, Natural Heritage Department and Competition Chairperson. President of the Barbados National Students' Council. Representative of the Barbados Council for the Disabled. Officers of the Ministry of Education, members of the press, specially invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. As we embark on our transformation journey with the theme, A Bright Future for Every Child, we are constantly reminded of the many factors that can contribute to enhance learning outcomes within our Barbadian schools. While the transformation agenda will focus on improving pedagogy, leadership, curriculum, the integration of technology, and the legislative framework, we must not overlook the physical spaces where teaching and learning are expected to unfold. It is therefore critical that a concerted effort be made to design schools that are fit for purpose, since they contribute to shaping young minds, fostering growth, and the creation of a sustainable future. Research consistently shows that our surroundings significantly impact our ability to learn. Well-designed classrooms, abundant natural light, and comfortable seating enhance concentration and cognitive function. When students step into a welcoming, organized space, their minds are primed for exploration and discovery. This state of readiness is ripe for project-based and play-based approaches. As such, the design of schools should inspire creativity, collaboration, critical thinking, and curiosity that can be fostered with these approaches to teaching and learning. In our schools of the future, we wish to see vibrant murals, interactive displays, and collaborative workspaces. These elements ignite passion, encourage teamwork, and foster a love for learning. In this era of technological advancement, it is expected that our modern schools seamlessly integrate technology. Schools should be built to accommodate high-speed internet, smart boards, and digital resources that empower both teachers and students. These tools bridge gaps, facilitate research, and prepare students for the digital age. While the facilitation of learning is important in the design of modern school infrastructure, safety should also be a consideration. Modern school infrastructure must withstand natural disasters, secure against intruders, and provide emergency exits. The design should also feature well-ventilated spaces, since they promote health and wellness. There must be adequate sanitation facilities, proper waste management, and access to clean water. A healthy environment supports both physical and mental well-being. The elements highlighted speak to infrastructure for learning. That is, infrastructure that is conducive to learning. I will now speak briefly about how infrastructure can be used as learning. There is the expectation that our students will use their school buildings and the school environment to learn about structure and function, living harmoniously with nature and energy efficiency. It is against this backdrop that students, with the help of their teachers, will be weaving the structure and function of the building and the environment into their curriculum. From the orientation of buildings to allow maximum airflow to the study of local ecosystems, students will be engaged in authentic experiences that help them in understanding the world around them. Students will also be actively involved in greening activities on the school plant. It is anticipated that they will be engaged in the maintenance of solar panels, be engaged in water harvesting activities, recycling initiatives, and will be on a quest to make energy efficiency a reality in their schools. It is vital that our children understand the importance of sustainability. Finally, there is a need for the creation of green spaces, for example, gardens, trees, and outdoor classrooms that allow our students to connect with nature. These areas will serve as living laboratories, teaching ecological balance and nurturing environmental consciousness. As we reimagine education, we envision school buildings that are not just static structures, but that can be dynamic catalysts for growth and the development of our children. Join us as we champion well-designed, safe, and eco-friendly spaces that empower generations to come. Remember, every classroom holds the promise of a brighter future, one where learning, safety, and environmental consciousness can thrive. Thank you.
Thank you sincerely, Chief. And we do agree that we cannot overlook the physical spaces where teaching and learning will take place. So the Chief and our Minister would have shared what they believe we should be working towards as we look to have this bright future, what this physical space should look like. Now I'm going to invite Mr. Daniel Bess, who is Director, Projects Department, Caribbean Development Bank, and currently seconded to the Prime Minister's office as Advisor, Infrastructure Development. He's an experienced development practitioner with a demonstrated history of working in the financial services industry. He's also skilled in sustainable development and building and leading cross-functional, high-performing teams. He will share with us this morning brief comments on the design requirements for this competition. Please welcome Mr. Daniel Bess.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Dr. the Honorable William Dugate, Senior Minister, Infrastructure Projects and Town Planning Matters. Honorable Ms. Kay McConney, Minister of Education, Technological and Vocational Training. Ms. Gabrielle Springer, Director General, Infrastructure. Ms. Wendy Odell, Permanent Secretary in Education. Dr. Ramona Archer Bradshaw, Chief Education Officer. Mr. Steve Definish, Director, Natural Heritage Department and Competition Evaluation Chairperson. Dr. Paul Murphy, Director, Change Management Unit. Mr. Kevin Brown, President of the Barbados Institute of Architects. President of the Barbados Student Council, representative of the Council for the Disabled, colleagues, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. In today's rapidly evolving world, the need for sustainable development has never been more pressing. As a nation, we recognize that our future prosperity hinges on our ability to build infrastructure that not only meets our needs today, but also preserves our environment for generations to come. One of the cornerstones of our sustainable infrastructure agenda is the design and construction of schools that prioritize resilience, energy efficiency, water conservation, and the utilization of natural resources. Our schools are more than just buildings. They are the incubators of our future leaders, innovators, and change makers. Therefore, it is imperative that we create learning environments that foster growth, creativity, and sustainability. First and foremost, resilience is paramount. In a world increasingly affected by the climate crisis, our schools must be able to withstand natural disasters and extreme weather events. Our current reality is one where we live in a region where 6 or 7 of the 10 most vulnerable countries in the world exist. By incorporating resilient design features, we ensure that our educational facilities remain safe havens for learning, even in the face of adversity. Furthermore, energy efficiency is not only a moral imperative, but also a practical necessity. By reducing our energy consumption, we not only lower our carbon footprint, but also save on burdensome operating costs. Through the integration of energy efficient technologies and renewable energy sources, we can create schools that are both environmentally friendly and economically sustainable. Water conservation is also paramount in the design of school buildings, as it not only contributes to the sustainability of the environment, but it also instills crucial values of resource management in students. Incorporating water-saving features such as low-flow faucets, water-efficient toilets, and rainwater harvesting systems not only reduces water consumption, but also educates students about the importance of preserving this vital resource. Equally important is the utilization of natural ventilation and lighting. By harnessing the power of sunlight and fresh air, our natural endowments here in our beautiful land, we not only reduce our reliance on artificial lighting and air conditioning, but also create healthier and more comfortable learning environments. Natural ventilation promotes air circulation and reduces the risk of indoor air pollution, while natural lighting enhances visibility and mood, thereby improving student concentration and overall well-being. Finally, the optimization of indoor and outdoor spaces is essential for the optimal delivery of pedagogy to our students and learners. By designing schools with flexible layouts and multifunctional spaces, we encourage collaboration, creativity, and innovation. Outdoor spaces such as gardens and playgrounds provide opportunities for hands-on learning and physical activity, enriching the educational experience and fostering a deeper connection with nature. In conclusion, therefore, sustainable infrastructure is not just a lofty ideal. It is a practical necessity for the future of our planet and our people. By prioritizing resilience, energy efficiency, water conservation, and the use of natural resources in the design of our schools, we not only create healthier and more sustainable learning environments, but also empower future generations to become stewards of that said environment. Together, let us continue to build a brighter, greener, and more sustainable future for all. Our communities, our children, our young people, students, teachers, and learners deserve nothing less. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you.
Madam Minister, you might have to change the logo. Not a bright future, but a brighter, greener future for our children. Thank you very much, Mr. Daniel Bess. Director of the Natural Heritage Department and Competition Evaluation Chairman, Mr. Steve Anthony Devenish, will now address us. Mr. Devenish is also the chairman of the Barbados World Heritage Committee. He is a chartered architect and member of the Royal Institute of British Architects. He is a past president of the Barbados Institute of Architects, and he has also served as an advisor to the Barbados Community College in the development of its associate degree in architectural designs. He is therefore well qualified to speak to us on the design objectives, the design procedural rules, the eligibility and evaluation criteria. Please help me welcome Mr. Steve Devonish to the lecture.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you and good morning. Senior Minister, Dr. William Duguid, Minister in the Prime Minister's Office, Ms. Kay McConney, Ministry of Education, Technological and Vocational Training. I have to get accustomed to that phrasing. I know how no one likes their name or their ministry pronounced incorrectly. Special Advisor Daniel Bess, Director General Gabriel Springer, Permanent Secretary, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. All that you've heard before are things that architects would normally pursue, but the difference on this occasion is that the ministry is going to hold them accountable for making sure that happens. The design process for most of us is an unknown. There are many things we want, there are many things we have heard this morning that will be delivered eventually. These deliveries and these concepts will come in stages. The stage we are at now is design concepts and ideas. Once we've gotten past that stage, we move into then what you call detailed design and further development. But for this stage and for this design competition, we've worked with a very energetic team from the ministry, and they were very insistent and active in providing guidance for us. Chief, I would actually suggest that the discussions we had for this brief was actually a learning experience for all of us. And we see this competition, the judging, the assessment going forward, as a continuous educational process, not only for those of us involved in the evaluation, but for those of us who will be guiding the process and for those who will participate. The key considerations, we've distilled those key considerations down to purpose and function of the building, of the structure, of the space, health, safety, and site security, climate resilience, disaster preparedness, sustainability, and community engagement. And these are all outlined in the brief. The brief itself represents a collection of where we are, good, bad, ugly, indifferent. It is a point of departure. It recommends, it shows what we've done before well, what we can improve, and certainly what we do not wish to do. And that, the brief pictorially and editorially, is intended for that purpose. It also shows activities that will occur throughout school plant and school places. For this exercise, the government has determined that there shall be 4 categories of schools to be designed: nursery, primary, secondary, and special needs. In the case of those provisions, a canvas, a gorgeous, generous canvas has been provided. In the case of nursery schools, we've asked people to imagine and to work with a canvas of 2 acres or 0.8 hectares. In the case of the primary school, the canvas increases to 6 acres. For the secondary school, 15 acres. And for the special needs, 5 acres. It is important that we provide that type of space and understanding if all the desires of the ministry, and in particular the information articulated by the chief, is to be achieved or to be explored as a concept. We do not expect that every architect and every person will submit the same design. We want to call on people's imaginations, for them to be creative in what we call greenfield site architectural exploration. For that, we must have a structured environment nevertheless. And among the guidelines for the competition are as follows. The competition will be open to all architects registered to practice in Barbados. Submissions may be by a group or individuals, and I'm sure from the deliberations this morning, most people considering taking on this task will know group consideration is critical, as no one professional holds all the knowledge and ideas for us to set out on this creative venture. Participants may submit for 1 school type or all 4 school types. In order to convey the information, in order to give us something to assess, information reaching us must consist of at least 1 landscape site plan. And by that we mean we do not want to encourage the situation where you design a building and then you search for a site to put it on. The entire acreage is your canvas, and your creativity must be contained within that space. And therefore, to demonstrate that you have done that, we will expect a ground floor site plan where the external spaces, as the chief is requiring, merges with the indoor spaces, and to show how we treat to those. Ground floor plan for the building itself. Another critical component is a step-free environment. It has to be a building that allows a space that allows people to move through easily. And there will be three-dimensional submissions, for example, perspectives, sketches, drawings, and all other sketches and drawings necessary to convey the information. Now, very often people see a plan, see a drawing, and start to talk about it, or you see a painting for that matter, and you're not sure what concept that particular creative person set out. In this competition, we are asking all people submitted, along with their submissions, to provide a 250-word creative statement which explains, but is not limited to, the design concept, the strategy for educational transformation, and climate resilience. In other words, it should not be left to us to guess what is the concept on the drawing. It provides that opportunity for a narrative to guide us through the process. Now, once those submissions are received, there has to be an evaluation criteria. And the evaluation criteria is tied back to the main objectives, tied back to the same things we want to achieve. And it would go as follows. Spatial arrangements across the entire site, and I keep stressing the entire site because we do not see this as a school building place on a field. We see this as a space within which learning will take place indoor and outdoor. 40% will be given to that. Landscape planning and design, we've repeated that again because you can deal with the environment, biodiversity, land degradation, agriculture, food and crop safety. All these things are taught within the school system right now. But it has to be seen as an integrated part of the plant and an integrated part of the operations. For that, there'll be 20%. Strategy for transformation and how the proposal will facilitate transformation. In the 250-word text, we will see more of that, where the designer will explain how they plan to do that, and then we'll examine that in the outlay of the concept. Climate, weather resilience to climate impact, 10%. Sustainability, viability, and efficiency of the proposal, 10%. And spatial requirements as it relates to standards, 10%. Now, once the brave and creative people of Barbados make these submissions, the battle begins and the arguments start. And the team that will be charged with the fighting is as follows. Myself as Chief Magistrate, Chairman. There will be an architect, that's me again, so I have two roles. I can decide I'm chairman to stop it up, or I can intervene when I'm talking about design. It's wonderful to have two roles. Civil engineer Daniel Bess, a town planner in the form of Dr. Yolanda Allen. Pedagogical, and I hope I got that one right. We've been practicing myself for the whole week to get that word. And Paul Murphy's been telling us, watch my lips and taking us through it. So I'm not going to try to call it again. I think I've scored the points there. That'll be Dr. Paul Murphy. Technical representatives from the ministry itself. No, that's important. The technical people at the ministry are battling every day with the maintenance, the complaints, how you manage a plant, the problems with the plant, and we do not want to have a competition design where we redesign and reinvent and resubmit the same problems. So their input on the evaluation and consideration is very important, and Mr. Andrew Parks will represent the ministry. The Barbados Secondary Teachers Union, the Barbados Union of Teachers will also be part of the evaluation panel. Association of Principals for Public Secondary Schools and Public Primary Schools will be there among us to keep the order. So that we won't behave too badly, we'll have the Parent Teachers Association, the National Students Council, and to ensure that we remain not only step-free, but understand the challenges of going through spaces from a disabled perspective, the National Council for the Disabled. Now, all that we've asked and all that's been asked of us, one thing I can tell you that has happened throughout this process, from Director General and from Dr. William Dugate. How soon, how soon, how soon? We have all the discussion. After today's launch, there'll be a deadline for queries, and that deadline will be on March the 22nd. By March the 29th, we will respond to those queries. And then the final submissions will be April 10th? May 10th. Right, May 10th. In each of the categories, there'll be 3 finalists submitted. And there'll be the rewards for that, and you'll hear about that later. And the strategy for the competition is really to engage and encourage a collective approach to design. It is also important to bring a level of understanding of design not only to the panel and to the architects, but to the Barbadian public. Very often, we see buildings and we do not understand how they work. It always reminds me of one of the things one of my professors always said: meaning in the environment is inescapable. You cannot avoid it. And therefore, how we treat the spaces, how we organize them, it is important to share that with the public. And it is equally important for people to recognize that once spaces are created, maintenance kicks in. And maintenance, along with the operations of that space, determines if the space is successful. It is important also to recognize that as we talk about modern buildings, there's also a concept called modern architecture and postmodern architecture. We've heard the Prime Minister talk about construction and deconstruction. There's a concept in architecture called deconstruction. And I leave you with this one. There was also a concept called brutalism, where most of our concrete structures were designed in the 70s and the 80s. And at that time, it was felt that they were safe for hurricane resistance and easy to maintain because it was exposed concrete and not painted. Today, we think that is the wrong thing. So I leave that with you only to show you that it is a constant evolution of ideas. And once we understand what we've done before, why it was done, and how it was done, we can then apply that to the considerations for designs as we go forward. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Devenish. And I want to applaud the designers for the competition for having that creative statement and explaining, and also for involving our youth as a major stakeholder in this competition. The president of the Barbados Institute of Architects, Mr. Kevin Brown, is present with us this morning. He is a locally chartered architect who manages his own design practice, Formwork Architecture, Inc. His previous experience consists of art installations, residential work, multi-story condominiums, and educational and institutional projects in Barbados and the Caribbean, as well as in New York. He is the current president of the Barbados Institute of Architects. Mr. Brown will share how he sees the involvement of our local architects in this competition. Please welcome Mr. Kevin Brown.
Thank you. Dignitaries recognized, protocols observed. The Barbados Institute of Architects is the sole fraternal society in Barbados that governs the conduct of architects, the practice of architecture, and the advancement of the profession in Barbados, really to the edification of the public. We are particularly grateful, I speak on behalf of the Institute, saying that we as architects are particularly grateful that we've been brought alongside in this process as partners in this format of our ideas competition. Ideas competition leverages the skills and talents of the architectural fraternity in a powerful way. Barbados doesn't have an undergrad or graduate program, so many of us have left these shores to be educated in our profession. So we have engaged in different academic contacts in first world countries, in Europe, in America, myself in New York. So with that, and then having gone to school here, many of us, I believe we are uniquely placed to take many of the concepts that we've learned in advanced countries and apply them here in this competition. There's also the personal investment of architects. Again, this is our country. We went to school here, I went to public school here. But then we also, a lot of us have children here, yeah? And we recognize, that, for instance, I have a 7-year-old son. You bring a non-touch screen, a touch screen, a screen that doesn't have a touch interface to him is ancient technology. But yet we're sending him to school in a room with 4 walls and a blackboard. So we recognize as architects, but also as citizens, that if we don't advance our infrastructure, our children will be left behind. Yeah. So again, we're really thankful. I want to encourage the architects out there to really put the best foot forward. It is a white paper concept, so you don't have the constraints of a real site per se. The role of the government, or the aim of the government in this exercise, is to really get ideas about the reimagination of education in Barbados and how spaces and infrastructure can facilitate that. And in a white paper concept, sky's the limit. Yeah. So I am hoping for a high level of participation among the architects. I'm hoping for some exciting out-of-the-box designs that question our traditional methods of space, of architecture, and of education. We recognize that education has gone from the more structured verbal command format and is more tactile, is more interactive. Our experience, we can learn something in school, but you really learn on the job site. Yeah, is when you start to handle something and interact with something and get your hands dirty with something that you really understand the nuts and bolts of that thing. And we want the classroom to reflect that. So we need spaces that are dynamic, spaces that are responsive, and spaces that are not static. So I want to again express gratitude. I believe that we have the talent on these shores to provide the government with some really great ideas and concepts, wherein they can then map these concepts onto some of the existing and old infrastructure in our island that so badly needs an upgrade. And yeah, thanks a lot for that. So, yeah.
Thank you very much, Mr. Brown. I learned a phrase now. I got to talk about the white paper concept. That's what we do have the talent on these 166 square miles. I believe. Do you believe that we have the talent? I believe that we have the talent here. We've come to the end of our launch for this competition, and therefore, at this end, to close and bring closing comments, I'm going to invite our Senior Minister for Infrastructural Projects and Town Planning Matters, Dr. the Honorable William Duguid, to address us at this time. Dr. Duguid? Honorable.
Good morning, everyone. Before I actually start, I want to beg the permission of the Chief Magistrate to first say that clearly this is an impassioned team, and this is the seed to germinate and chart a future for Barbados and for our children. And you could hear it with these high-powered people who have gathered together and brought their ideas and their skills to put together first the competition, to get even more creative people involved, to bring their ideas, to put what the ideas were by the Ministry of Education to actual concepts in 2 and 3D, that then we can take it to the next stage, which is actually implementing to make these schools much, much better. And that is the goal for this government, and that is the goal for this team. Thank you. And it's not a vote of thanks. Minister of Education, Technological and Vocational Training, the Honorable Kay McConney. Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Education, Ms. Wendy Odell. Director General Infrastructure, Ms. Gabrielle Springer. Mr. Daniel Best, Special Advisor, Infrastructure, Prime Minister's Office. Chief Education Officer, Dr. Ramona Archer Bradshaw, Director of Natural Heritage Department and Competition Chairperson and Chief Magistrate, Mr. Steve Devenish, Presidents of Principals and Teachers Union Association, President of the Barbados Institute of Architects, Mr. Kevin Brown, President of the Barbados National Students Council, representatives of the Barbados Council of the Disabled, members of the press, specially invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, all. I see somebody's phone here. I don't know whose that is. Yours? Oh, okay. Well, maybe I should be speaking this way. At the policy level, Barbados is on a mission to transform our economy, to encourage social and economic development, and to rebuild our country. The transformation agenda targets several key interrelated objectives: fiscal stability, resilient infrastructure, education, transportation, etc., public health and well-being, civic engagement, and good governance and government. The value of investment in public infrastructure cannot be underscored. Over the years, the infrastructure in Barbados has withstood several severe weather events. However, within recent times, there have been several instances of service interruption as a result of environmental concerns and natural disasters. We may recall the physical damage and expenditure associated with the freak storm, where approximately 28% of the school infrastructure was impacted, and approximately 63% of school infrastructure during Hurricane Elsa. Access to modern infrastructure will therefore support resilience and safety for all users, especially considering the negative impacts of climate change, including the increased likelihood of hurricanes and earthquakes. Transformation of road infrastructure, school and public health infrastructure, the establishment of buildings and spaces for other public services, along with the provision of opportunities for residential upgrades, ownership, and facilitate shared positive experience by all stakeholders. The delivery of education. Government's significant investment in education speaks to its continued commitment to facilitating the delivery of quality education to its people, and the understanding that an investment in delivery of quality education is the means by which we can enable upward social mobility of our people, and at the macro level, positively impact our national development. Modernization of school infrastructure enhances accessibility and access to the relevant infrastructure. The drive to comprehensively upgrade school infrastructure embraces important national and international goals relating to energy efficiency. The use of modern energy efficient systems can open the way for early exposure to new technologies in this area, and through exploration and development of other energy sources can encourage entrepreneurship. This, of course, can stimulate growth at the personal level and at the national level. The use of modern energy systems also creates a cleaner environment as we seek to reduce our reliance on energy generated by fossil fuels and ultimately the associated pollutants. The consideration of systems to water conservation and food security across the education system speaks to the seriousness of this administration to building Barbados's capacity to sustain ourselves in times of need. However, a robust framework for the utilization of information and communication technologies allows for ease of access to information worldwide, and the platform by which our people can develop their skills and knowledge over their lifetime and increase employment opportunities. It is therefore intentional that the Ministry of Education, as part of its modernization program, will outfit every school with the necessary technology to encourage its use and generate the level of creativity that we expect from our teachers and students alike. It is important to mention the role of infrastructure as it relates to building stronger communities. It is anticipated that the improved infrastructure will also develop stronger school-community relationships, where the facility can be used for educational purposes and community activities, as well as physical activities, to aid in the development of health and overall well-being. It is also hoped that maintenance and upkeep will be embraced by all schools and their communities as a shared responsibility. I am happy to be associated with the design competition and the novel approach taken by the Ministry of Education, Technological and Vocational Training. The government believes that a successfully completed design competition publicly announced the adoption of a vision for education generally and school infrastructure in particular, which brings together the interests of public and non-public stakeholders and which benefits from the input of the public and our education communities. Moreover, we hope that this competition will be the breeding ground for new ideas and emerging new talent, that it will smash preconceptions, break down barriers, and produce designs that truly transform how we deliver education in Barbados for the next 5, 10, or 20 years. I could imagine actually something like Star Wars type building. With special materials. The problem, of course, is I might put a material or somebody put a material that's not existing yet, so I don't know. But anyway, as you have heard, the Modern School Infrastructure Design Competition is open to all registered architects. We, however, invite architects interested in the mission of the competition to collaborate with principals, teachers, students, engineers, product designers, thinkers, community practitioners, private sector companies, and other organizations to prepare designs that are innovative, creative, and sustainable. Designs that provide multi-functional learning spaces and schools that will provide comfortable accommodation for its users. Prize money. That's a good segue, don't you think? The prize money for the top 3 finalists in each of the 4 categories will be $20,000. Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure on behalf of the government of Barbados to officially launch this design competition for modern school infrastructure. Thank you for attending this press briefing this morning, and we look forward to the full participation of the Barbados Institute of Architects and the general public as we continue our journey to transform the lives through reimagined education system. I thank you.
Thank you sincerely, Honorable Duguid. Who does not want $20,000? In each category. I'm sorry that I'm not an architect minister. Too late? Yeah, I want to also commend the Minister for mentioning that the schools will not only be used in the day, 9 to 3, that we are actually encouraging your design to facilitate the community coming in the afternoon, and I think that is something that we will welcome in our school system. Now, several persons came here before and said this is not a vote of thanks. So, have we had a vote of thanks already? Sincerely, no, I want to thank all of you. I want to thank all of our speakers for your comments and sharing the information as it relates to the design for the competition or modern school infrastructural design. I want to thank the members of the audience who graced us with your presence. I want to thank all of those who watched online. And we are at the ministry, we are looking forward to you submitting your comments. I think some important dates were shared as it relates to the design. Susan, what's this called again? This is the design brief. It will be available online on the ministry's website, the GIS website, and the Barbados Institute of Architects website. There are also hard copies available for persons present here, and we will want persons to go online to get that information. So it now is my pleasure to bring this briefing to a close. Thank you all. Have a great day.